Hi, in this video I would like to show you how I knit pot holders like these. I have used a cotton yarn called Viking Vår and needle size 4 millimeters and a crochet needle size 5 millimeters. More information about the yarn and the pattern you find on my website. I will link to it in the top right corner and in the end of the video. I have my yarn and my small circular needle, and I will begin to cast on. First I make a slip knot like this. I place it onto my needle and I just slightly pull, not too tight, but just so it fits around the needle. And this is the first stitch, and when I cast on I just hold the first stitch and I keep the yarn between my middle finger and my thumb. I use my index finger from underneath and up, and I twist so that I make a loop around my index finger. I place my knitting needle on top, move it down to the tip of my index finger, up through the loop, and I just slip it onto the needle, slightly pull, just to place it close to the first stitch. So from down and up, twist to make the loop, knitting needle on top, down to the tip of my index finger and slip the loop onto the needle. And now for my recipe I will continue until I have 90 stitches. If you use a different recipe, then you just check your stitch number so that you get it correct. And I will get back to you on how to do the next step when I am finished with my cast on. So now I am finished casting on all my 90 stitches and I'm ready to start knitting. So I connect my two needle ends like this. I make sure to not use this yarn end here when I begin to knit. This one will not take me far. So I take this end of the yarn and I keep it over two fingers like this, and when I knit I begin by using my right needle and I stick it through the first stitch from this side here and like this, so I cross my needles. Then I move to the tip of my index finger and I go behind the yarn and I bring the yarn through the stitch like this and slip it off the needle. And I just make sure to place the first stitch I knit close to the last stitch here. And I continue in the same way, stick my needle through the next stitch, go to the tip of my index finger behind the yarn, bring it through and off the needle. And I will continue to knit the entire row like this. And when I cast on the way I do, which is my preferred method, I sometimes, when I knit the first row, I get these gaps between the stitches. This is no problem. It happens because you pull the needles apart and you can easily get rid of these gaps by, when you slip the stitch off the needle, just don't pull too hard. And when I knit a bit looser here, I will be able to make the gap smaller and smaller. And you have to watch this on the first row only. When I knit the second and the rows after that, all has been connected and will stay a bit firmer, and it will no longer be an issue. And the result is that I get an edge like this, which is really easy to crochet around when I am finished. So now I will continue to knit 3 rows using this color, and I will get back to you when I have finished my 3rd row on how to continue with 2 colors. And my row begins here where I have my yarn end. Now I have finished my first 3 rows, and it's time to add a second color that I will use to make my pattern. To begin with, I will just twist the yarn end around my thumb like this. That's to secure it so that I can get some tension on it when I begin to knit. And I will just start knitting according to my pattern, which begins with 3 stitches using bottom color. And then I change to my pattern color. After knitting a couple of stitches, I can just let this go because now my yarn is secured here. And it is just regular stockinette, but I have 2 colors to choose from here, and I just pick up the one I need to make my pattern. So I will just continue in this manner, following my pattern chart until my pot holder is has the required length, and then I will knit another 3 rows of bottom color. What I like to add is that I like to keep the same colors in the same place when I knit with 2 colors like this. And this is to ensure to get an even result. It's not easy for everybody to keep these 2 yarns with the exact same tension. And if one of them is held tighter than the other, you will get less yarn in the stitches in one color than in the other, which will make the one color stitches to appear larger than the other color stitches. And if you change colors here, you also change the location of the yarn, and sometimes then also the size of the stitch. And this will make the pattern look uneven. So if you are good, you will manage to keep them here with equal tension, but I always, just in case, always keep them in the same position. So now I will continue to knit my pattern, and when I have done the 3 rows here in bottom color, I will get back to you on how to do the next step. Now I have repeated my pattern until my pot holder has reached the length that I want, and I'm now ready to cast off. And when I cast off, I do as following. Now I'm at the beginning of my row, and I start by knitting 2 stitches. I take the first stitch and I slip it over the second and off the needle. So I now cast off one stitch. I knit another stitch, slip the other stitch over, and so I continue throughout the row. I make sure I do not knit too tight, because then it will, if I cast off too tight, I will just pinch my stitches together. And I will now continue to cast off until I am here at the end of my row and only one stitch remains. And then I will get back to you on how to do the next step. So now I have cast off all my stitches. Only remaining is the last one. I have cut my yarn for the bottom color. The yarn for my pattern color still remains attached here. And what I do is simply to take my needle here and pull the yarn end through the last stitch. And next step, after finishing the last stitch of the cast off, is to crochet around the edge. So here I have the yarn for my pattern color still attached here on the wrong side, and I like to begin here, and I try to match up each side here, and I try to find the middle on this side. And because this part here and here, where I have bottom color only, these will make the sides. So I think I have it here. And what I do, I take a crochet needle size 5mm, and I just bring it through one stitch like this. Make sure to bring it through both yarns here. Pick up the darker yarn and bring it through. Then I pick up the yarn once more and bring it through this stitch as well. Then I skip the next stitch and go to this one. And I do the same through both. Pick up the yarn and bring it through. Pick up the yarn again and bring it through the two stitches. Like this. Skip the next, pick up this one. And I continue in this manner. Skip, pick up. All the way around. Of course, you're free to make your own version of this if you are better at crochet than I am. I just try to do something basic so that I am able to make it look okay. And when I get back here, I just crochet a chain of stitches, and I make a loop here to be able to hang it. And that's it, really. I thank you for watching, and I hope this was helpful.